Captain's Log, Stardate 19. Got it right this time. These are the continued voyages of Ensigns Mark and Eddie, or as my mate Gilly said the other day, Ensigns Eddie and Ensigns Eddie's much funnier friend. Thanks for that. I was best man at his wedding. Prick. And
if I can't get validation from your dad, then Gilly, thank you, mate. You've made my day.
Yeah, as we continue to trek through all of Star Trek here from 10 forward. So, Mark, how you been?
I've been alright. I was at a funeral the other day, and it made me feel. So I'm my origin story is a bit odd. As a Glaswegian man, I'm crossing the bridge because I am half Irish Catholic and half Freemason Protestant. And my granddad died. The last remaining the last holdout. He fucked up. He died, and we had his funeral. And he was a fairly religious. He was a Fenian. He was like a proper Glasgow Fenian, right? So he's a proper Catholic. I mean, what part of Ireland was he from? Maryhill, right, which is in Glasgow. His family haven't been Irish for generations, right? Which I'll say out loud because he can't change the will now, can he? But we had a Catholic funeral, like a proper Catholic send off for him, and the whole way through obviously the other side of my family came as well to show support. The whole way through the mass, I was like, as a Catholic, I am embarrassed on the behalf of the Protestants. Like, this is the worst. Like, we were there for an hour, and he got talked about for a solid 5 minutes, and the rest of it was about how Jesus is letting us into his house. How many rooms does his house have? Oh, many rooms. Oh, loads of rooms. Hunners of rooms, mate. Absolutely loads. You want to come and see his house? Got to die first. But that's alright. When you die, you'll be met by Jesus. There was a lot about this Jesus cat, and I don't know. I haven't been to mass for a while, so I don't know when they inserted this guy in. But he's taken a lot of the chat away from my Granda Joe. Now, don't get me wrong. Basically, everything we said about my Granda Joe was an absolute lie. On his gravestone, we've asked for inverted commas around the word in loving memory. But no, and then every time we had to kneel down again, I was like, oh my god, what are they going to think of us? We have to kneel down, we have to get up. Gee, I mean, no wonder there's issues in Northern Ireland. That was bad. No wonder they hate us. Stand up or kneel down. Make up your mind. It's the ones when you have to go. It's like a traffic light system, where you go from stand to kneel to sit to stand to kneel. Oh,
why does God care? Why can't I appreciate? Like, I don't believe in God, but if I did, why could I not appreciate him and his wonder from a comfortable chair?
Yeah.
Could I not be like, God made this comfortable chair? Getting out of it and kneeling down seems to be an insult to the entire universe that led to this chair.
I also think it's God just rubbing salt in the wound of paraplegics.
It's like, you already suspected that I didn't love you, and now I'm going to let you know for sure.
Are you gonna kneel? No. Oh.
You know you're in a church and they've got the little gallery bit up at the back. That's so that somebody can like operate the paraplegics like a puppet.
Yeah.
Like they just marionette them up and down.
And he turns around to the guy next to me and says, I mean, you think it's bad for you, Kevin. This guy's a quadriplegic. At least you can shake other people's hands. This guy doesn't even bother shaking their hands. And he's sitting there and he's on a ventilator. And he's like, but God, you did this to me. And God's like, no. No. Don't be giving me that power. Better start shaking people's hands or it's the bad fire for you. And if you think that life is a living nightmare right now, oh boy. You are in for an eternity of pain, my friend. Pain that you ironically can't feel from the neck down, but we'll fix that. As soon as you step through the doors of hell, because I'll give you back the ability to move your body for the one step into hell.
I've always thought though, if you get to hell, like Satan's trapped there as well. Nobody wants to be there. Maybe it's nice. Maybe he's like, yeah, sorry, you're down here.
Yeah.
Do you want a drink?
Because do you know who throws a good party? The gays. And do you know who the Catholic Church don't like either? Exactly.
They're fine with homosexuality as long as one of the parties involved is a child.
That didn't get brought up much at my granddad's funeral. Although the priest did at one point spontaneously burst into song. like Life is a Musical starring him. We were all very confused.
Was it at least a hymn? Or was it? It wasn't the monorail song.
No, it was. You know the bit that to set the scene. I mean this only because I've been hanging around with the absolute worst racists in my family. He was African. He was an African priest, so he was black. And if I remember correctly, you know the bit that white priests will kind of half sing about in the unity of the Holy Spirit.
Oh yeah, that.
Oh, that bit, right? Fucking full scale, mate. He right on it. Started tapping his feet, clicking his fingers. He was having a blast.
I'm glad somebody's enjoying Catholicism. Finally.
Yeah. How's your week been, man?
Yeah. Well, I stayed up till 5 o'clock this morning watching an AEW pay-per-view, which was fun.
Nice.
Good, like wrestling. The way this is going to work out by the time this is going out will be after I've been zapped in the heat and filled with radiation. So that's I'm off work now. So that's like I booked this little bit as holiday because I thought, because otherwise I'm not going to be able to enjoy myself. But I've no idea. But it's I feel that I'd have a little bit of a breather.
I do feel a little bit like you're setting people up there for a disappointment, because what they're going to think is, I'm looking forward to the next episode when he's off his tits. But we're actually recording the next episode immediately after this. So that after this, when you say, how was your week, Mark, I'm just going to do that exact same bit again.
Yeah, that was very much my plan. But there'll be one after this. So there'll be the next two, and then there'll be one after that where I don't know if I will fully have comprehended the episode of Star Trek that we watch. Which,
well, as long as you're fine by Measure of a Man. No, don't worry about it. I'll just talk about Measure of a Man. I don't even need you there. Just do a solo episode.
Yeah, that's always an option. I'm just sitting there going, Star Trek.
I mean, I probably could do it. I in therapy sessions, I ask myself more questions than my therapist asks me. I noticed the other day she didn't speak for 25 minutes. And I'm not holding that against her. That was absolutely the correct thing to do. But I just...
let me counterpoint that. How much are you paying for these therapy sessions versus how much would it cost you just to get a ventriloquist dummy?
Oh, nothing. I pay nothing. It's included in my council tax.
Oh, yeah.
Because where I live in Glasgow is so awful that they have set aside money for literally everyone to have 4 sessions of therapy.
Yeah, knowing full well as well that given the average Scottish character, that the vast majority of people aren't going to take them up on the offer.
Yeah.
Talk to someone about my problems. No, thank you.
And after you do 4, they can bump you up to an extra 3 for a total of 7, which must be a nightmare for the OCD community.
Yeah, I'm going to have to pay for at least 1. Well, yeah. 7's a prime number. Maybe that works out for them.
Speaking of prime, how was the week on the Starship Enterprise? Let's direct of it back to that.
Yeah, this is one of the few episodes we've watched that doesn't feature a fundamental misunderstanding of the Prime Directive, which was nice.
Yeah.
I've got this is the quickest that we could be able to sum up the plot of an episode of Star Trek ever, Mark, because the plot is Klingons.
Yep.
That's it. There's basically there's been a battle in the neutral zone The Enterprise goes there. They find some Klingons. They bring them aboard the ship. We learn some more about Klingon culture, and then by the end of it, they're all dead. That's
Yeah. So this, one thing I got a little bit mixed up about, because in the original series, the Klingons don't look like that, and this has been a big thing in Star Trek fandom for a long time. But this isn't the first time we see the Klingons that look like that. It's Search for Spock, right?
Yeah, it's in the movies.
Yeah,
that they decided to because it's just like cheap spray tan and the facial hair and like big eyebrows was all they had early on. But there's not really an explanation ever given as to what happened, except that I think maybe the Klingons decided they wanted to look more fearsome, so they did that to themselves.
I think there's an explanation given in Enterprise, but
yeah,
I haven't.
Who knows?
I'll never find out.
Unless we go through all of the Star Trek and end up watching fucking Enterprise.
I think the world will be over by then. Imagine if you and I were 65 calling each other, and no, imagine by then they just put us in the same home. Did you like Enterprise? That's my old man voice.
It's like, yeah, I'm looking forward. I'm not really spend my retirement talking about Star Trek. I'm going to use it to finally play a Dark Souls game. Oh yeah, one thing I did like in this bit, right at the beginning, they've detected that there's a battle in the neutral zone and there might be survivors, and they're like, oh no, this is terrible. And Picard's like, warp 7, so not that crucial. You've got 9 of those warps available.
Take it easy. Take it slow there, Geordie. Steady as she goes, yeah. Don't worry about it. Neutral zone. I'll have you know that I've already passed this test at Starfleet Academy. It was called the Kobayashi Maru. So don't worry, we're going to get there. And it turns out we're not going to be able to do anything about it. So, if anyone wants a smoke break, go now, because we're going to have to spend half an hour pretending to give a fuck. And presumably there'll be some admirals watching from afar. But
yeah,
I'm out of here.
We also get Geordie vision in this episode.
Yeah.
So,
something interesting I learned about the Geordie vision is the way that they made Riker and Data that he looks at. The way that he made them look slightly off kilter is that's actually their stunt doubles.
Oh, okay, that's interesting. So if I replace any of the crew of the Enterprise with their stunt double, Geordie won't be able to tell. That's useful for my plans to seize control of the Enterprise.
He can. Geordie can actually tell people by smell. Because that's a thing that
Riker just reeks of cum.
People are always giving it, oh man, when you go blind, your hearing gets incredible. Like, everything else becomes excellent as well. Your sense of smell becomes as good as a dog. Geordie knows people from just how their arse smells. And that man has had his face in a decent amount of arse on the holodeck. Not much in real life.
Is there smell on the holodeck?
Yeah.
Okay. Right, I don't know.
There's also taste. But
because they just use the replicator for stuff. Yes, yeah, good point.
How would your taste of how could your sense of taste be improved? Like, because I understand, like if my sense of smell was better, I'd be able to smell things from further away, and I'd be able to, like, Wolverine style track things. And if my sense of hearing was better, I'd be able to hear things further away, and also maybe be able to, like, differentiate different sounds in like a massive kind of sound environment. But if my sense of touch was improved, I'd be able to paint like a visage in my mind when I touch the thing. But what would a better sense of taste look like?
I guess it would be like you could know exactly. Well, actually, you've clearly never watched The Gourmet Detective, Mark, which is a series of 5 detective shows based on the premise of what if somebody had super taste and could use that to solve crimes. As you can see, there are only 5 episodes because it's not really a concept that has legs. But yeah, it's like, oh no, this is like this thing that the person was eating is only imported from this one country, because like it's like knowing the difference between, oh, this tastes like chocolate and this tastes like, I imagine it's just having an excellent palate for like everything.
So that's like if a sommelier was solving crimes.
Yeah.
That's some fucking number, that is, by the way. Sommelier must be the best job in the world. And it's and like, I'm not slagging it, if any, because I know one. My best mate, sorry, Eddie. My best mate, his brother is a sommelier, and it's kind of fascinating listening to what he does and like what his job entails, man. But that's some number, mate. That's,
yeah.
Like when as a non-paraplegic, I'm able to kneel at mass, so I'm getting into heaven, and when I get into heaven and they give me like my own, like in Supernatural, when they just give me my own little room in which to kind of do whatever I want, I think I'm going to take a year to learn to be a sommelier, and because it's heaven, I won't be able to fail. But then also at the same time, maybe
there's only one type of wine in heaven, unfortunately, and that is the blood of Christ.
And he has to come round and top everybody up. It's Malbec.
Oh, it'd be so disappointing if you found out, like, oh, the blood of Christ actually turns out is a really shitty. It's Wolf Creek.
But fast.
Yeah, no, but yeah, one thing in this episode that really gets me is Geordie's, like, they've got Geordie vision on the screen, and Picard doesn't understand the concept of relative perception. Like,
yeah,
like, he's like, oh, why does it look so weird? And he's like, this is how it always looks. This is how you've always seen. It's like, well, how can you see anything in that? And he's like, well, I've had this my entire life, so that's how.
Are you trying, Picard? Are you trying to tell me that, because we know what you do when your relaxation light is on, right? Are you trying to tell me you've never sat down with another person after half a joint and went, do you ever think about the fact that what you perceive as red inside your own head is different, definitely different from what I see as red, but we both recognise it as red?
Yeah. No, that is a conversation that Picard's... Literally, I figure this would have been covered at the Academy, day one. Some aliens see things differently.
Sun Tzu, page 1.
But yeah, they and by the way, the freighter they beam over to in this, was this entirely transporting dry ice? Because there's a lot of fucking steam. Just like a lot of steam, which is apparently poisonous. And then later on, Data goes into it and he's like, oh, I can't get poisoned. And he's like, I found a door. Can you come help me open it? And they're like, do we have to walk through the cloud of poison? Yeah. And when we get there, how are we going to help? Well, you just stand here while I open it with my android strength.
Imagine if Riker said, what's the result of the poison? And Data went, well, it's actually, what it does to humans is it blinds them. And Riker's like, great, Geordie, you stay here. Solve this problem with me.
Yeah. But, this is a pretty fascinating episode, I think, because they find 2 Klingons, they beam them over, and it's a whole thing about like Worf, like nature versus nurture. Yeah. Is he? Because we find out finally that Worf was like adopted when he was very young, because like he was on Kitama, which is where like the peace treaty between the Klingons and the Federation was signed. Yeah. I think, and it blew up. His family was wiped out, and he was just adopted by like a human family, because nobody thought of like just ringing the Klingons and being like, we've got one of your kids here.
555 Klingon. Hello?
Yeah. We've got one of your kids here. Which one is it? He says his name's Worf. Sorry, you're breaking up.
That sounds a lot like a your problem. We do get sort of, because I can't really remember Search for Spock. It's been a long time since I've seen it. Yeah. But we do learn a lot about the Klingon culture. It is pretty interesting. Yeah. Like, I'm really looking forward in this show to delving into the Klingon culture, because it's like the of the 50 Shades of Grey, Klingon culture is number 25. It's the greyest grey. And because we discover that their backstory, and I'm not going to spoil this because I'm looking forward to Laura discovering this along with watching the show. But their backstory is kind of Russian Revolution-esque. They overthrow their monarchies and their religions, and then decide to only deify people that they know actually existed and people that they know were true warriors, which then generations down the line kind of becomes its own problem, which is like a really that's like that's like Star Trek for me. That's really interesting Star Trek philosophical humanist ideas of worship and kind of deism. We don't get that much.
The closest they have to a deity is like there's a Klingon, Kalis, who's like the founder of the Klingon Empire.
Yeah,
like he's the first, and they he's like the big. No, he definitely existed. He did some awesome stuff.
He's like the William Wallace, but if Braveheart was real.
The princess that he has sex with in Braveheart was 5 at the time. Not saying it didn't happen, but it would have been less romantic than portrayed in the film. But yeah, I like the fact that like the whole thing in this is also there's a lovely little bit of racial profiling against Worf later on, but where like there's a bit where like Tasha brings up like, oh, can we trust Worf because there's 2 other Klingons aboard the ship, and Picard's like, that's a good question, we should keep an eye on that. You know, like how if you were like a Muslim serving in the American military and you picked up a vessel that, like in the Navy, and there was a boat sinking, and you got that boat and there were 2 other Muslims on board, everybody would be like, well, our Muslim, Muhammad, he's obviously going to side with these other 2 Muslims and steal our ship. That's,
no,
it's.
I will come out and say it right now. I don't like to put myself into camps. Right, I don't like to label myself, but racial profiling, not here for it. Right, I don't like it. Right, I think it's as I said to my great uncle at the funeral. What is your issue with the black cat woman? And his response was, I just don't like D word. Right, plural. So which I'm like, at least you're not. If you're willing to put it out there on Front Street, in a way, kind of respect. But also, once you die, the world will be an objectively better place. But
unless 2 other racists are born that day. So
what's my point? So I think in worst case, Tasha Yar is, I think, a good security officer. I think a more apt description would have been is if we were a ship with a Muslim crew member, or not even a Muslim crew member, like a crew member who knew that he was a Muslim, and then but was raised by 2 Christians, and then we picked up 2 random Muslims. And they constantly were walking around going, Islam's great. It's fucking top notch. You know all that way. You know that way that you feel inside that you just want to constantly beat the shit out of people. That's
Islam.
Right, I'm gonna be careful with that because I don't want this to get soundbited.
To be fair, we should have just. They're kind of talking to him like, oh, inside you constantly, you want to just go out and fight and murder everything, and he's like, yep.
Yeah,
we embrace that, and he's like, no, I iron self-control. My battles are against myself, and the fact that I win proves I'm a strong warrior. And they're all like, oh, whatever.
I don't know, man. I disagree. I think a little bit there was a bit of respect on their part that Klingons should be constantly fighting a battle, and if that battle has to be against yourself, then at least you're still fighting.
Yeah, I'll give you.
So but. So Tasha, because we have a new system on this podcast, on the podcast discussion that we're having on 10 Forward.
So basically, after last week, Remick left, and he asked us just to keep an eye on things for who we think should be promoted or disciplined. And
it was a bit bizarre that he asked us, considering we were in 10 forward off our tits on synthesized ecstasy, which is just slightly worse than normal ecstasy.
So you take 2 and it's fine.
Yeah. But he says, I want 3 things. I want to know who was promoted, who do you think should be promoted, who do you think should be disciplined, and who is the MVP.
Yeah.
And for this week, we might do this as a separate segment. I don't really know how this is going to fucking work.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna say Tasha Yar. I'm gonna give her a promotion for racial profiling.
And I can understand where you're coming from, and I would like to simultaneously agree with that, but also think that Picard should be disciplined for then agreeing with her.
I agree, because that's not what a captain should do.
As a security officer, perfectly valid point to raise, as was pointed out when Data's evil brother turned up. Yep. Right? Okay. But at that point, that is slightly different, because Data having an evil brother proves that 50% of Data's species are evil, right? Which is a much higher percentage, one assumes, than of the Klingons. But then Picard should have been like, hush your gums. None of that. And if you are going to say stuff like that, don't do it on the bridge.
Yeah.
Now everybody's going to think you're a space racist or a spacist.
Yeah. Tasha, do you know that this is constantly being recorded the whole time?
I mean, MVP of the episode is obviously...
The ensigns are going to be able to watch this later. There's literally nothing. The problem is, look, I don't know if you remember 2035 when the Freedom of Information Act fucking ran amok. And everyone was allowed to see everything all the time. And that's why you're on camera right now. There's a camera there. That's why your hair has to look good, even though you're just at work.
It's like everybody on the Enterprise spends an hour in makeup and hair before coming to the bridge.
Apart from Worf, he's in there for slightly longer, for reasons that we will never know.
But yeah, I like the idea of this episode quite a lot, because I like the Klingons turn up and they're like, so the point that the Klingons are in Star Trek at this point is that they've been at war with the Federation for fucking ages, and then between the two films, between the Next Gen, the original series and Next Gen, I think it's in the movies, there's peace declared between them, which basically boils down to the Klingons were like, actually, we've been involved in an ongoing war with you for so long that it's turned into respect, because we're a warrior culture, and you keep fucking us up as much as we keep fucking you up. So we're kind of like, basically it's entirely because Kirk existed, and the Klingons were like, he's fucking awesome.
Exactly.
He keeps talking computers into, like, evil computers into killing themselves. It's fucking mental. I had to stab them. They can do it with words.
Once a week. He fucking talked my calculator into draining its battery.
And then he fucked my wife.
Who knew? Yeah, because I guess, like, I mean, obviously the Klingons are a warrior race, but they do have honor, and as I have gone back to several times on this podcast, as much as I'm not anti-military, the idea, I'm never going to join the military, because I am a massive fuck up, and the last thing, in fact, the first thing you want as a military leader is for me to be on the other team, right? But I really like the etiquette of Starfleet. I like how it works. I like it when they take time to explain, why can't I say this to you, because you're this, and this is how the rank works, and blah blah blah, and we have to do this, and these are the rules. I dig that, man. It's got a cool vibe to it. And I think the Klingons would probably quite like that as well. It's like, these guys are obviously very efficient, and there is honor in efficiency.
Yeah, and there's like, they have a command.
That's what was written above the other concentration camps.
What, the British ones in the Crimea?
Yeah.
I love that this the whole plot of this episode is basically that these Klingons don't like that there's peace and they want to try and they just want to die, but with honor, like in a battle. And it's like, well, like the other Klingons turn up and they're like, well, we'll have to, like, they stole a cruiser, they killed a bunch of people, we're gonna have to put them to death. And Worf's like, can't you just put them on an inescapable hellhole planet where they'll get murdered by monsters? And it's like, no, we have to execute them.
Kirk did it.
Pricks.
And now there's a rule. The last computer that Kirk convinced to kill itself, he done it by putting it on an inescapable planet, and then Starfleet Command were like, "You're taking the piss. Can you come out of my wife long enough to fucking talk to me about this?"
But yeah, so I love as well. One thing I like about this is that the Klingons get up in the brig at one point and they escape because they've got so many buckles on them that they can put together like a disruptor blaster and shoot their way out. Which just reminded me of I don't know if you've ever watched Surviving Edged Weapons, Mark. Which is, I've stumbled across it because it was on an episode of Best of the Worst, and I've watched it in its entirety. It is a police training video on what to do if a guy has like a knife. And
I have seen this episode.
Yeah. But yeah, I've watched the whole thing in its entirety. It's fucking incredible. I showed it to my mate John because he DMs the game of D&D, which I'm playing a rogue, and I showed it to him so that I could justify just how many knives my character can have secreted around their person. It's like we got to like, how many knives did you manage to sneak into this like setting? I was like, about 50. And he's like, where are they? And it's like, oh, here. Like, yeah. But you so.
Sorry, just when we're talking about that idea, my friend Hannah, our friend Hannah, in fact, she's actually probably listening to this. Because she says that she likes to have our podcasts on in another room because it makes her feel less lonely living at home alone. She doesn't want to listen to it. She just likes our voices coming from the kitchen while she's in the living room. She messaged me the other day to be like, you know that pilot that you wrote? And I went, yeah. And she went, I have ripped that off entirely wholesale for a D&D campaign. But I've added these details to it and this backstory for this thing. Is that all right? And I'm like, that's much better than than the shit I came up with. So I'm happy with you ripping it off, so long as you're all right that I'm taking that and you get no credit.
But yeah, they build a little disruptor and blast their way out and kill a member of the crew. And even at that point, Worf's still like, let me talk to him.
Yeah.
And
did you notice the return of Lieutenant Smiley Joe?
I did notice the return of Lieutenant Smiley Joe, who's apparently gone from bridge officer to getting shot at by Klingons. So,
do you want to know a secret about Lieutenant Smiley Joe?
He inappropriately touches people in the workplace.
Nope. He is Worf's stunt double.
Oh!
So he actually shows up quite a lot. And Laura really likes him.
Is that why he's got to be on the bridge in case Geordie looks at Worf? Swoop in.
Oh, that really tickled me, mate. Yeah, I guess so. Yeah. But we were watching it and Laura shouted, "Oh look, the handsome black guy's back!"
Hey, yeah. He's one of my. Because we've watched 2 episodes, I was gonna say I was very pleased that he's returned. My favourite minor characters turn up in the next episode, but we'll get to them when we get to them. But yeah, it's we see so as well. So it's our first, other than Worf, this is our first Klingons this season, but it's our first Romulan warbird as well. So it's the first time we've seen decloak that's not a planet.
Yeah.
I feel like they spunked their load on that one. Now we've had to. Also, if you're a proud warrior race, Mark, why do you have cloaking instead of shields?
Yeah. Yeah, that doesn't make a lot of sense. Because I'm Scottish, so I'm from a proud warrior race. Hadrian's Wall wasn't built to keep the Romans out, my friend. And we famously will just fight people bare-arsed, which is literally the opposite of cloaked.
Yeah, whereas I'm predominantly English, and we cheat, do sneaky. We'd love a cloaking device. That's like
you cheated, for example, back in 1707 when you went. Do you know what would be a really good idea, Scotland? Is if you just sign your name down there, and we just make. It's not one country. That's not how we'll present it. We're still two countries, but we'll just agree on things all the time. Do you know what I mean? We can bring Wales as well. In Scotland's like who?
Yeah.
Wales. You know that country that we took over a while ago. We can bring them. Yeah. Oh, the accents. Aye. Right, bring them. Laugh it. All right, lads.
And then the Scots were like, so it'll be 3 countries, and the English were like, no, 2.
Yeah.
England and Wales and Scotland.
And then now to be fair, now I will rarely. The problem with what I'm about to say is the one person I know who's going to listen to this is my Irish girlfriend, who'll be like, right, you've cottoned onto something there, but you're a lot wrong. Which is that a lot of the Northern Ireland problem was caused specifically by Scots Ulsters, half my family.
I know that you said Ulsters, but for a moment I thought you said All Stars. We sent our best people in to
sent in James McAvoy, Peter Capaldi, Lewis Capaldi. He played the bagpipe. So yeah, I feel like Scots are. Well, actually, no. Do you know what? Fuck it. You're welcome. Because Scots are directly responsible for the problems in Northern Ireland, which is really the only reason that we didn't get as bad a Brexit as we did. So you're welcome. Always looking ahead, the Scots.
Right, we've wandered somewhat from the point.
Klingons.
Yeah, Klingons. Woo. So one of these guys is in engineering, Mark, and there's a whole conversation about, oh yeah, if he shoots into where the dilithium crystals are, it'll blow up the ship. I just feel like maybe that should have a lock on it.
Yeah, or a shield, or some panels. Engineering, the engineering on the Enterprise is, because you always see it from one direction, don't you? You always come round from the sort of the kitchen island bit with the little laptops on it, which was lower this week so that one ensign could sit down at it, which was a bit bizarre. And then it's like, oh, isn't this? Here's all our wonderful stuff on the walls, and here's where Alexa lives and all that shit. And then they pan round, and it's like, here's the warp drive, here's the warp core, and you're like, oh, what you mean, like a projection of the warp core that just behind glass, that so that engineers can have like a visual representation of what's going on it, so that they can figure out what to. No, that's it.
Yeah,
behind
that's the actual warp core
behind the glass. Yeah, right. And
it's not even behind glass.
How tall are those railings? About 3.5 feet. What's the average height of a Starfleet officer? About 5'4". Right. And how did Mr. Singh die again?
Yeah. It's the fact that the warp core doesn't have a big metal shield around it that slides up when they need to do something and then closes up.
Yeah.
And it can only be opened
and warnings on it, do not shoot.
Yeah. Okay. Chernobyl went wrong enough as it was, and the reactor wasn't directly behind the control room. It wasn't it's just through there. Have you not got any shielding? I don't think that'd be necessary.
I imagine there was a guy. If someone asked that question in Chernobyl, I'd like to be the guy that was like, "Oh, trust me, mate. If it goes wrong, we won't need shielding."
The warp core is kicking off so much radiation in every ship that there aren't actually any aliens in Star Trek. Those are all just birth defects from warp travel.
Just it really should be called the Thalidomide Federation. The USS Thalidomide.
UFF. United Thalidomide Federation.
Yeah, because thalidomide is such a horrifying disease that they can't type the letter T. They can't reach it on the T on the keyboard because that's what it actually starts with. Because F is closer.
Yeah,
it's true. I just checked that out. Imagine an entire starship crewed by people with thalidomide. Because the thing is, like, affirmative action still has to exist in the 24th century, I guess. Maybe. No, it probably doesn't. But imagine it did.
I would love to be I would love to be in the room when like some Star Trek casting agent is like, I just want all this race to be thalidomide people, and like have them go, we can't put out a casting call, and he goes, right, okay, but if I'm making Lord of the fucking Rings, I'm allowed to ask for little people. Why can't I get a bunch of people who've got thalidomide hands, call them chongly wonglers, right? And have them live in the woods.
Yeah. I am, because I have many thoughts on this. As a man who I genuinely believe that there should be a sort of affirmative action when it comes to acting. I feel like people don't. I feel like the problem is that the people who are arguing about it tend to be the people on one absolute side of the spectrum versus people on the other absolute side of the spectrum, and that tends to cut out the people in the middle who are actually affected by this. Like if someone has a disability, if a character has a disability, and you never see them without that disability, and that disability is a central part of their character, you should cast an actor with that disability, for the simple reason, not just that they can do it better because they have the experience and all that wank shit, but for the simple reason that they are not getting casting calls for just
able-bodied,
the love interest in a movie. Like, they're not getting that, so it's unfair that people who can should get that above them. And then obviously it should come down to, can they act? Are they good? Blah 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 blah. There's layers to this, right? If you want to talk to me about it, meet me in the pub, or leave comments on the Facebook page. I'm not going to answer them. I don't do the admin on this. I don't give a shit, right? But I personally think if you were Star Trek and you put out a casting call for thalidomide actors, I think a lot of people with thalidomide would be very happy about that. And then when they all get there and you're like, we're going to a planet of T-Rexes, that's when they're going to get pissed off.
Yeah, it's easy to get them into the room. I'm not denying that. It's just getting them to stay.
Exactly, but then at the same time they're like, we're not going to be degraded by this. It's like, what else have you got on? What, you got to go and change the light bulbs in fucking traffic lights, mate? Can't reach.
I love that that's the thing you jump to.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, well,
it's not a real job.
Are you happy to be able-bodied? I mean, every time I change the light in a traffic light, I say a little thank you to the Lord above.
I signed an NDA, right? So I can't really say what it is, but I worked on a movie this week. Just as like don't get impressed. What was your mate's name? Gills?
Gilly, yeah.
Gilly, don't get impressed, mate. I was literally, my job was to stand beside a thing for 12 hours and say, you can't come through here.
Yeah, and Gilly, I'll tell you what film it was later.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Listen to my accent and then use Google. It's not hard. And I was talking to a guy in props, and his job, he was going around putting duct tape on the traffic lights, on the actual, like, the light part, like the lens part, because for continuity reasons, it's easier if they're all just blacked out. And I went, oh, that's really cool, man. What's normally your job on these films? And he's like, this is it. I just
That's I love when you meet people like that who've got just like a weird, obscure job that you just never even considered. It's your job. I block out traffic lights on movie sets.
He works for a department that got paid more than I did. That was just his one job. Puts duct tape on the traffic lights, takes it off at the end.
Heavily unionised. You see somebody non-union putting duct tape on a traffic light, fucking hell to pay.
Yeah.
The Teamsters will walk out.
Yeah.
I've no idea what a Teamster is. It's just, it comes up a lot.
They are the Teamsters are the hardest working people in Hollywood, and that's the only reason that The Simpsons got away with that joke.
Right,
so surly and lazy.
Yeah. I imagine there's not a lot of Teamsters working on The Simpsons. Like I said, I don't know what they do, but it's not drawing.
Probably not. No.
Is there anything else you want to talk about in this episode?
No.
I like the Klingon death ritual.
I like that as well.
Yeah, they scream to warn the dead that a Klingon warrior is coming.
That's cool. That's badass.
Yeah. And it said that when you get there, it's all the people that you've killed who've been waiting for you and know you're coming.
Great. Get to kill them all over again, motherfucker. No, I'd be into that. I honestly wouldn't mind if I got to the see if I died and I got to the afterlife, and they were like, here's the deal. It's the afterlife, so you get what you get what you want. Like, again, in supernatural terms, you get a little room. In that room, it's kind of like a holiday. You can do whatever you want in it. You just relive all your greatest moments, or you can create new great moments for yourself and whoever you want to meet. You can go and do that, blah 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 blah. But here's the thing: it is Catholicism, but it's Klingon Catholicism. So obviously no paraplegics. In which case, I'm like, well, how do you call it heaven then? That's a little in joke for people who know Mark. But he's like, but the test is, in order to get in there, you have to re-kill all the people that you have already killed. I'll be like, great. None.
Well, you ever taken an antibiotic? There's an army of bacteria waiting for you, Mark.
Do they all attack me at once, or do they attack me one at a time?
They form the shape of a bacteria man.
Right.
Like, I don't know if you've ever read the Into the Spider-Verse comics.
Yeah.
There is one of the versions of Spider-Man is called Spider's Man,
yeah,
who is 1 million spiders who believe themselves to be Peter Parker.
Yeah.
It's like that, but bacteria.
Fine.
Yeah.
I've worked in retail, and I have quite a cutting sense of humour and a low tolerance for idiocy. So I have no doubt that there is something that I have said to someone that has put them over the edge. There's got to be some, that way that there's someone out there who has probably masturbated thinking about you. I have almost certainly been the last thought in someone's mind before they've taken the plunge.
I genuinely believe that there's certain evil you can do in the world where you haven't directly killed someone, but the amount of like added pissed offness and anger that you've put into the world has pushed somebody to do so. And I reckon so. Like in my entire, like for example, like Priti Patel's never killed anyone directly, but on her ledger when she gets to the afterlife, there's going to be no, these people, these are all yours. Off you fuck.
I used to work with a guy. Sorry, go on.
I reckon I'm at least on that level. I'm at least up to 4.
I used to work with a guy at Tower Bridge, in the visitor experience centre of Tower Bridge. And if you're like, how much can you possibly learn at Tower Bridge that isn't? This is a structure that crosses water. Well done, you've nailed it. £15, please.
Watch the unfinished London video on London Bridge. It will teach you more than you'll ever learn.
Great video. I love Jay Foreman. We should get him on this podcast. Because he's also an ensign on the Enterprise.
Yeah, he is. So his brother, Beardy Man.
Yeah, we might have a guest coming up. By the way, I'll tell you about him later. There might be someone coming to Glasgow. And
Ensign Jensen.
No. And forget it. Right, maybe cut that bit out because it might not come to anything. But I was speaking to my friend Tom, and I was like, just one day I was like, because he had quite a dark sense of humour as well. I went, how would you kill yourself? And he went, definitely in front of a tube at rush hour. And I went, really? Why? And he said, I want to inconvenience as many people as possible.
That's why the people who do that, Mark, they've got that attitude.
Yeah.
And that's why they've got no friends, and suicide seems like the answer.
So
if you are thinking of throwing yourself in front of a tube train, kill yourself at home.
Because I'm not a believer, but I'm definitely going to have a Catholic funeral just so that I can have that priest do it. And there is no way I am going to have as many people at my funeral thinking positively about me as I am people cursing me if I throw myself in front of the Jubilee line at 5:05 p.m.
Yeah,
and
that's true,
mate. It's all good news, isn't it? There's no such thing as bad PR. So,
how would you kill yourself, Mark?
I mean, I'm going to be quite boring. I just barbiturate some whiskey.
Ah, okay. I'd go suicide by.
Sorry, what?
I'd go suicide by cop. I don't know what I'd do, but fuck it. Yeah. Why not?
Laura, I know that this isn't funny, especially based on my own current mental status. And I know that all this is going to do is make you worried, but I genuinely, if I think I've actually said this to Laura in the past, which I thought was hilarious. She did not take it well. Is if I ever killed myself, I would make it look like autoerotic asphyxiation, so that she was never 100% sure.
The big question there, Mark, is what would you leave running on the laptop?
That she knows.
No. But why not do something really weird people out? Put on like PMQs. What in this? Was he getting anything from?
This woman has a fully functioning body. I don't get it. I know him. Why is this?
So.
Is this why he had to fucking go long? Is this why he had to wait until he lost all his breath because it just wasn't doing anything for him? I want her to approach my death the way that Batman approached the crime in The Batman, which is to just let it all happen around him, and then at the end of it, there's an assassination attempt on a politician.
Yeah. Actually, yeah. This is a week later. This is going up. So if you haven't seen The Batman, I mean, well done. It's not really worth your time.
No. The trailers are better.
Yeah.
And that isn't coming from a. That's coming from a man who I really dislike the idea that nerdy white men in our 30s have so lost the dominance of geek culture being ours that we have to therefore be negative and cynical about it just to make ourselves feel powerful. I don't really subscribe to that idea. There are things that I genuinely enjoy. I will enjoy things if I think that they are good, and yeah, there's maybe things that I didn't enjoy. Although there's certainly things that I literally had to apologise to Laura because I lost my fucking nut so much at how much I hated the finale of Midnight Mass, which I had I think Midnight Mass is the best horror miniseries that's ever been made. I think it's a masterpiece.
We're right at the tail end of this, and I've not actually had this conversation about you, so stop listening now if you don't want spoilers for Midnight Mass. It's one of the best things.
It's incredible.
Ever. Right, what is it you had a major problem with?
So again, spoilers.
Yeah, spoilers.
My problem, and I realise that this is dumb. My major issue about it is that no one talks about how it's clearly a vampire, and I felt like that undermined a lot of the themes of atheism and logic and calling a spade and realising when something's wrong, because vampires exist in that universe. We know that because Riley has a copy of Salem's Lot.
Yeah.
Unless in this universe that was about werewolves, which Stephen King, give us that. Just rewrite Salem's Lot, but about werewolves. And it really bothered me, and it really annoyed me that it became not so much that it became an action episode, but that it became an action episode where not one single character went, "This is a vampire. Shall we at least try vampire things?" But it was an emotional reaction at the time. I regret it wholeheartedly. Laura, I love you. And you had to bear the brunt of this. But I then rewatched it and I was like, this might be the best episode. This is a fucking masterpiece of an ending. And I...
What annoyed me for a solid hour before I calmed down and then thought about it and realised I was wrong was how, so there is a character in Midnight Mass who is in a wheelchair and she is cured from being in the wheelchair by vampire blood, and then at the end of everything it is revealed that she can no longer feel her legs. And I was like, well, the vampire blood caused her to heal, but it's not, its absence shouldn't cause the damage to reappear. I got really angry about that. Oh, can't she walk away? And then I clocked that it's the narrative way of going, no, that vampire didn't get away. He got killed by sunlight.
Yeah.
That's because if he was... And then I immediately reversed my decision on it after being really angry about it for an hour.
There's also the idea that if it's about faith, then the vampires... When you lose faith, you lose... Because the thing about Midnight Mass is people are like, this is 100% pro-atheist, and I'm like, it's not really. It's is it Mike O'Donnell? Is that his name? He's got an Irish name, Mike Flanagan. Yeah. It's him coming to terms with what he thinks belief in religion is. That's why his two main characters. I hate this. It has so many monologues in it. I'm sorry, this has great writing. Go fuck yourself. That's why both Riley and Mrs. Mike Flanagan, a sexy lesbian glove from the other one that he did. That's why they both get equal weight when they have the big monologue scenes, because it doesn't really matter what what really matters is what you think to yourself. And if you lose the faith, it drains out you and it goes away, and everything, the healing power that the faith gave you goes away, and you just have to deal with that and live your life, which is why that character didn't die.
And it's not explicitly pro... I agree. I don't think it's explicitly pro-atheist because of the fact that one of the fundamental counterpoints throughout the series is having a character who has a different religious experience from everybody else, but is no less valid. And in fact, it gives a really reasonable and fantastic reasoning of why, given his life circumstances, his faith is incredibly important to him. And it'd be so easy to be dismissive. Oh, I don't believe in silly things, but it's not that. It's masterfully well written. Yeah. It's a Stephen King miniseries where every episode is Stephen King on the best day he has ever had.
Also,
watch Midnight
Rahul
Mass.
Kohli as the sheriff is real daddy sexy in it. And even as a straight man, I was like, yeah, I'm into this.
And also he has his monologue, his speech is the best one. It's
Midnight Mass is a masterpiece, and
it is
go and watch it.
Phenomenal.
If you've listened to that, you've had it fucking spoiled for you. But don't worry about it.
Yeah,
it's the best TV show I think I've seen in.
It's 7 episodes, and it's 4 episodes before you even really know what's happening. Yeah, and you don't care because the characters are so good. Mm-hmm.
Well,
anyway, shall we?
So
that's a lengthy discussion of this episode of Star Trek.
Worf is the MVP, obviously.
Worf is the MVP. Tasha should be promoted, and Picard should get in trouble.
Agreed.
Good. Bye.
All right. Bye.
The Captain Slog is performed by Mark O'Neill and Eddie Edwards. You can follow us at Real Mark O'Neill on Twitter and at Romulan Ale on Twitter. You can follow the podcast at Captain Slog and get updates about our latest episodes. And if you really like what we do here, why not go to our Patreon? That's patreon.com/Captain Slog.